here are the stats that we can get with the podcast when done properly. We average between 11.3 and 18.1 positive reply rate with podcast outreach. In this video, I want to walk through how to find consistently 1 to 4 guests per week for your B2B podcast so that you can solve branding and lead generation for good. My name is Guillaume Jouvencel. I'm the co-founder of GHA Marketing. We've launched and grown 107 B2B podcasts to date. We have our own 2 leading podcasts in 2 different niches, corporate treasury and consulting. And this is exactly how we go about it. This video, by the way, is part of a series of videos to complement a book called B2B Podcasting Secrets, where we break down our entire playbook on how we solve branding and lead gen for good for B2B businesses. The link is in the description if you want to check it out. It's free. Also, at the moment I'm recording this video, I record personally 3 to 5 interviews each and every single day. So with a proper process, it is totally possible to have a limited amount of guests coming on your show. And if you do this for a long time enough, those guests actually come knocking at your door to be on the show. So let's get into it. So the number one step, obviously, is to find people to reach out to. By the way, this is section 3 of the playbook. Section 2 covers how to get the first few guests, which is a bit different than what I'm going to break down here. So if you haven't seen it yet, go and check it out. That will give you proper context to understand how we actually get leads on a consistent basis through the podcast. So the first thing to do, obviously, is to build a list of target ICPs to be able to invite them on the show. So you have multiple options here. You can, of course, start with your network. We'll talk more about that in the previous video. You can get the guests that come on your show to refer other guests like them. It's an ultra powerful tool to get referrals to come on the show. But then what? So here is how we build list of potential guests to come on a client's podcast or even our own. The number one source is going to be, after network and referrals, other podcasts in our niche that target the same ICP as us. Meaning we're going to look at all the other podcasts in our niche, specifically the active ones that have guests, and then we're just going to go and handpick the ones that we want. So why does this work particularly well? Those are people who not only fit your ICP, have already been on a podcast that is in your industry, so you know that they are willing to come on shows, and it is super relevant for them because they are probably in a personal branding building mood. So why does this work particularly well? Well, first of all, those are podcasts in your industry who have already done the work, the hard work of finding the perfect people to come on the show. So you just have to go and handpick the ones that you want and reach out to them to see if they would be interested to go on another podcast in a similar fashion. Second, those people have already been on podcasts, so they are much more likely and willing to go on people's show to be interviewed. So there is a high likelihood that they say yes, again, if the podcast is properly positioned and you have the right social proof. So industry podcast, number one way to find guests for your B2B show. Then you can, of course, look at platforms that regroup data and information about people, especially in a B2B context. So here I'm thinking about Sales Navigator, Zoom Info, Apollo, ListKit. All those platforms typically have great filters that allow you to find people that you're targeting. But instead of sending them a cold outreach to be like, hey, do you want to buy my stuff? You can propose them to come on your podcast to create content together with them, so to build value for the industry. It doesn't stop here though. So we typically build the list, find the email address, buy them if needed, and then we run them through a tool called Bounce Ban. So there are multiple tools that do the same thing as Bounce Ban. The reason we selected this one is because it's rather cheap and works really well. And what this is going to do is actually going to verify that the email is a proper one. It validates it basically and make sure that your email is not going to bounce, especially if you do this at scale. You don't want your email addresses to lose reputation. It impacts deliverability and response rates and so on. So that's why we run them through Bounce Ban. And then we're going to enter into a phase of human personalization and enrichment. There are plenty of AI tools right now that allow you to enrich a list by adding a personalization, by adding phone number, and so on and so forth. You can totally use AI to do this. We do human personalization, and I'm going to show you exactly why. So how do we do this? and why. First of all, you should know that in the cold outreach space, many people use the exact same tactics. And as new tools, new technology come up, people use them, and very, very quickly, the email copy all look like the other ones that are being sent to the people. So usually, especially in high-ticket B2B, you're targeting very high-level people with lots of responsibilities, lots of purchasing power, which means a lot of people are trying to get their attention. So when you use an AI to do a personalization or to send an email, you should just know that you're probably doing the exact same thing that 20, 30, 100 other people are doing that very same day to try and get your ICP's attention. So what we like is to stand out from all that noise. And for that, there is nothing better than a properly trained human that is going to go and look at specific aspects of that person's profile online to pull up the things that we can use in the personalization. Namely, what we like to look at is a recent LinkedIn post, a recent company achievements, an article that they have personally written, the episode that they've recorded on that other podcast, potentially a video that they've made on YouTube or a video that their company has made on YouTube. The whole point here is to say, hey, look, I have done my homework and this is my opener. And then you add your thoughts to it. Keep it short, less than 30 words, but start the email with hello, first name. Hey, particularly enjoyed your post on XYZ on LinkedIn. It made me reflect on XYZ. You can automate this with AI, but again, if you do this, remember that everybody else is doing it. You're probably gonna get a lower reply rate, and I'm gonna tell you our stats in a few minutes, and you can see that they are completely out of this world when it comes to cold outreach. So building a list, a very narrow list, I'd rather reach out to like 10, 20 people a day than thousands, but for those ones to be the exact person I want to get in touch with the podcast. Then human personalization, and then you need to build the email in a way that's gonna get the people to understand that your show is legit. This is not a sales play. This is actually a tool that you are building in the industry to create thought leadership content and to showcase interviews of people like them. And this is a super important point. The show needs to be legit. We need to genuinely produce great content for the industry first and foremost, so that we can build a legitimate, genuine relationship with the guests. For that, nothing better than social proof. So again, I send you back to the previous video if you haven't watched it, but you should have 3-4 interviews at least when you begin the podcast with the same type of people that you're trying to get the attention of. So typically ICPs. And in the email, you're going to name them. You're going to say, hey, so-and-so, saw your post on LinkedIn, particularly enjoyed XYZ. The reason I'm reaching out is I have a podcast that only features people like you and where we talk about XYZ industry. We've already interviewed someone like you number 1, someone like you number 2, someone like you number 3. And now I would love to have your take on those topics. You want to showcase social proof and mention your peers. Now, most of the times people won't know the names that you're mentioning, but if you mention the job title and the company, they will understand that those are people like them and you will get their attention. So always mention 2 to 3 past guests who've been on the show and who look like the person that you're trying to get on the show as well. This increases our reply rate by 20-fold. Literally. So if you've done any cold outreach in the past, you know that industry standards are typically a 1% reply rate. Doesn't mean positive reply rate. It just means that they reply. And that's the traditional cold outreach, less than a % reply rate. Here are the stats that we can get with the podcast when done properly. We average between 11.3 and 18.1 positive reply rate with podcast outreach. And that's across 75 industries, multiple company size, Fortune 100, like this works, but you need to follow the exact process of being very narrow in the targeting, finding exactly the people who are relevant to your podcast and for whom you are relevant, personalize with a human that actually looks at stuff that guest has done in the past, the most recent, the better. Mention some past guests who are like them for the social proof aspect, and you should be getting at least a 10% reply rate. And if you do it perfectly, you will be somewhere between 11.3 and 18.1 positive reply rate. Now, how to go from that to an actual booking, because this is also the goal of this section. So the core principle is you want to remove as much friction as possible as of the moment the person says, yes, I'm interested. If they are keen, if they want to come as a guest, you need to get them to book a call with you. And Of course, you will lose some of those people in the process because they will just not think about it or put this on the back burner whatsoever. But the challenge is, how do we get as many of those as possible to actually book a call? You remove all the friction possible. Here is how we do this. Cool, would love to schedule a pre-interview discussion on what that would look like. It's typically 20 minutes with the host. And here is what you do. You don't just put a link for them to book a call, because people usually like that we tailor the approach to them. You also don't ask, hey, what time would work for you? Because they would probably not bother, go through their calendar, select some times, send them to you, wait for an answer, learn that, go back. That doesn't work. You want to make it as frictionless as possible. Here is how we do it and get crazy booking rates with that. We start with proposing some times. Hey John, glad you're keen to come on the show. Here are some 20 minutes time slots that work for name of the host. And here you need to propose 3 different times at 3 different dates, which will allow them to have different choices. And if they have like a recurring meeting at a specific time of the day, they will select one or the other. You don't stop here though. You propose 3 times and you also add, hey, if it's easier for you, you can also book a time directly with the host using this link at your best convenience. So of course, we want to use a Calendly booking link or anything else that you might be using, but we just don't want to show it as the first option. We first want to show them that we are accommodating them, that we are tailoring it for them, and that they are the ones obviously getting the most value. Ends up happening is that most people use the link to book a call with you. If you're dealing with an EA or a VA, this is even easier because you can coordinate with them directly a time that works for the guest. Proposing times, 3 different times at 3 different dates, plus adding the link usually gets you a very, very high booking rate. And this is how you can schedule 1 to 4 guests each and every week on your podcast.